I am Rosie Sherry. I'm the founder of Ministry of Testing, which we've now started to call the MoTaverse as we are expanding on things that we are doing. And today I'm here to talk about the Ahh Test, and this is something that we've been working on internally in the MoTaverse. So recently in the MoTaverse, we've been rethinking what testing is, what quality is, what building good products looks like. And we've been diving deep into the community and everything that people are sharing. As it's kind of been hard to not talk about products and building better products without talking about, we can't talk about testing on its own. And we started talking more about quality as the bigger picture. But the more we started doing that, the more we felt like even that felt a bit restrictive. And we have to have the view that quality is everywhere, and we have to think more holistically about how we build products and whether the models that we've been using to build our own business and our own product work anymore. So I guess, it's a little bit philosophical, but, it's also a journey for us of trying to figure out the world is changing a lot and how can we move with the times and think about better ways to work. So as we were exploring and thinking about new ways of working, one of the things that kept coming up is within our team meetings, our team sessions, our product discussions, the decisions we were making, we kind of noticed that sometimes we started saying, so it's like when we had a good idea, it's like, that's interesting. I like that. That's a good idea. And the more we started noticing it, then the more we saw it kind of come up and we started using it ourselves. So we were like, that's a good idea, as we were kind of collaborating with users or building out new features. We would start to publicly or openly say the word And then also, as we were moving on and just using the product or seeing other people's ideas come in, we'd find ourselves saying, that's nice, that's interesting. And the more we kind of started using the term the more the team kind of tuned into it and said, is this something that we should be thinking about more? It was almost like a little signal that we should start having more conversations about things where we reacted with the word So before I go on a bit more about the Ahh test, I think there's some important notes to say, especially when there's language differences. I think, just highlighting some use of words is important as well. So is not right? Like it's biting me, or like if you have a pet or a small child, you might say it's biting me, but that's not what we mean by it's a completely different meaning. Or we shrieked at the developers, or we screamed at the kids. So is a very different meaning to right? And that's something definitely to bear in mind, is that we're not saying this in a fearful way. And but not And I said, there you are. Or there's a bug. Or I hadn't thought of that. Again, this is a different type of This is more of an interjection and more of expression or of interest. Or there's also which sounds a bit like But it's like, oh, she's so cute. This is my daughter, so yes, of course she's cute. Oh, she's so cute. But then it's like, oh, I didn't get the job. So it's not or, it's ah. So or can be used as like, being something very cute or indicating disappointment. And that's not what we're interested in today. And there's also awe, like when you're in awe of something. Personally, I'm often in awe of rainbows, hence the rainbow image. Every time I see a rainbow or double rainbow or a rainbow around the moon, they call it a moonbow. I'm in awe. Like I just stop and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. You kind of want to say, oh, that's amazing. But that's, again, it's very different from the word ah. So for me, ah is like ah as in yes, ah, or ah this feels good, right? And ah this aligns with what we're trying to achieve, or ah it's like heck yeah, ah let's go for it. And this is really kind of like the meaning behind the R test. It's like we're looking for these signals of yes, this feels good, yes, this is what we want, or yes, this is what the business wants, and we feel it kind of aligns. So when you're thinking about the R test, kind of think of these feelings as we're kind of exploring it a bit further. So what is the R test? So today is like my first attempt at trying to explain it. So this is a very much work in progress, thinking about what the R test is. So as I was trying to put together this presentation, I kind of came up with the R test is a model to help us make better decisions to enable the building of a better product. So for me, as a founder, as a business owner, as someone just trying to build a good product, yes, testing is important. Yes, quality is important. But also at the root of all of that is making better decisions. If we can make better decisions, then naturally quality will improve, and hopefully the testing we do will be more aligned. So we can think of the R test as a binary feel-good signal for decision making. So pretty much like every conversation we have, or anytime we show up at work, any async Slack type messages that we have going on that we use to help us communicate and build products, those we can think about the R test in the background as we're having all these conversations. And the R test passes if it makes people go, ah, that feels good, or ah, that aligns with what we're doing. And then we know we're kind of on the right track. And it fails if it causes doubt or misalignment or stress. So, whilst I call it the R test and I say it passes or it fails, really that's just a way of thinking about it. There's no real test cases for this, if you're thinking from like a testing mindset. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been using this in the MoTaverse to help us make better decisions. It's been evolving probably for the past year or so since we first recognized it. And the more we've paid attention to it, the more we've been adapting how we use it. And the thesis of this is really, as a founder and CEO, I believe making better decisions ultimately leads to better products. You can't test your way to better products. You have to make better decisions all along the way. And the R test enables quality because it questions what matters in what we are building. So the R test is almost an opportunity to test live, to shift left, to raise issues as we're building things, not leaving it till later. And again, the R test isn't about pass or fail. It's about the interactions and decisions made as a result. A big part of the R test is it creates understanding. We want to create understanding between the team. A lot of businesses and products fail due to lack of understanding. So if we can think about the R test as a way to create understanding, then that will also help us move forward. And also important to the R test is quality is not just about building something that works. It's about building alignment. Again, I would tap into the idea that we can't test our way to make a good product. We have to be aligned in everything we're doing, the whole team, the whole organization. We have to ensure that there's alignment. And again, the R test helps with this. It's about building something that gets used. So building a good product is about building something that gets used, is good for our users, aligns with our values, aligns with the business needs, and so much more. So when we think about quality, this is all about quality, but quality is also all about building a good product. And again, the R test kind of fine-tunes and focuses on these things and thinks about building products as a better outcome. So I've kind of covered some of the ideas around it, but I haven't really dived into like how we've been using it. So hopefully the next few slides will start to make a bit more sense. So simplicity is at the core of the R test. I guess like one of the biggest journeys that I've been on in the past couple of years is really rethinking everything that our business needs to be. And as part of this, I've been going on like this journey of simplicity, like complexity. The world is like literally like it feels so complex at the moment. Like often I look back at like 2019 and life felt so simple back then, like pre-pandemic, pre-AI hype. It just felt so simple compared to how it is today. And I just think complexity is coming more and more into our lives, and it's so hard to make sense of all the moving pieces. And as a business, and thinking about how we grow and how we build a better product, I kind of noticed that there's so much waste, and I don't like waste. I've kind of decided that I've got one life that I need to live, and waste is not a place that I want to spend time living. So anytime we kind of think about building things in the MoTaverse, my whole goal is to make it as simple as possible, to have as little extra work, to think about the things that don't make any sense. So when we've been thinking about the R test, simplicity really is at the core of how we've been thinking about it. And I laugh a little bit because when the R test is really that simple, and mostly it involves asking, does this pass the R test? And that's like the core. If you could take anything away from this session, is holding that question like in your mind as you're building your products. Is like, does this pass the R test? And I guess like you might think, well, what are you asking to pass the R test? And it's like this, does this pass the R test? I guess a key word there is this. It could be anything in the business. It could be a conversation. It could be a product. You can ask it about anything, and it's really quite insightful. So you and your team you set the criteria of what passes our test. And I think in business, quite typically, we can often have like all these goals or all these standards that we have. But if we're trying to think from a simplicity standpoint, it's like quite often like goals or visions of organizations can be so disconnected from our day-to-day work. And I think really the R test helps us connect with the goals that we do have, but in a more practical day-to-day way. And when you're thinking about what's in your R test and what needs to pass or how you're thinking about it, you might relate the R test, for example, to your culture and values. So at MOT, we like to have a fun brand. So often when we ask, does this pass our test? If we're about to publish even like a new piece of content and it has an image, we will ask ourselves, does this image pass our test? Does this image align with our brand? How do we feel about it? We might also ask, maybe it's efficiencies. Maybe efficiencies are important to your business. Maybe you need to cut back on certain things. So as you're building a new feature or refining your processes, you can ask yourself, is what we're doing today passing our test? Is this aligning with where we want to go? And simply by asking those questions, then answers start coming through conversation or through interaction with your team. We can also, for example, think about the R test in relation to how we feel. And perhaps in business, we don't share how we feel enough. But I think it's actually quite healthy to share our thoughts and feelings about the things we're building. And if there's a lesson that I've learned in my life is the more open you are about what you're thinking, the more you realize that other people are thinking the same things. So if we can say, does this pass our test with how we're feeling about it? And then if someone says, no, for me it doesn't because of X, Y, Z, then someone else might raise their hand and say, oh, I've been thinking about the same, but I didn't think it was important to raise it. And the point is not to take action on it. The point is to open good communication channels to create that better understanding and to enable you to make better decisions. So by asking, does this pass the R test? The R test naturally shifts quality left as part of every interaction. So in the testing world, there's been a lot of talk about shift left, so moving testing as early as possible. And the R test is literally, one of those things that can happen at any time, anywhere, and in every conversation, to create those better decisions so that all the problems don't occur later on. If we're asking the questions in the moment, if we're asking, does this pass the test of what we want to build? Does it align with everything? That is natural testing happening in the moment, right? This is like shift left, and this is natural. I'll call it maybe natural shift left. It feels right. It feels the more you start practicing it, it just starts to feel. It feels good just to be talking about these things and realizing that as a result, you're building something of better quality and naturally avoiding problems further down the line. The R test is for everyone, so anyone in your organization. Imagine, team meetings, your Slack, anyone can participate, anyone can ask a question, anyone can spot someone saying because it's like we all care. We should all care about the system. Quality at the at the end of the day is about care. If we're not showing care, then problems are naturally going to occur. And the act of continuously highlighting or looking out for the R test is a sign of care. And it also is very good at kind of raising up different people's perspective. So, a quality person, a testing person will naturally say or spot things that are different from a developer or a designer or a user. But when we think about implementing like the R test ideas, the fact that anyone can contribute towards this, it becomes, again, very, very insightful. The R test asks everyone to dig deep continuously. So the continuously part is a bit, again, like the shift left ideas. It's like we're doing things as early as possible and continuously. This is like not a one-off. This doesn't happen just at the beginning and then just at the end. This happens in our day-to-day lives. And a key part of this is learning to identify when the R arises or whether it even exists. So I might say, it's the R test, but, perhaps in Uruguay and South America, you'll have different words. And that's okay. It's not the point of saying R or sticking to that word. We might have different ways that actually shows up in our organizations. Some people might scream out loud and say yes, and then like every time you hear that, that's the R test. It's like, yes, does that pass? Or yes, does that mean that we're on the right track? So really, a big part of the R test is also thinking about that how your team communicates and how these good feelings might arise. For me, the R test is also a single word with a clear impact. So the fact that we've kind of started using this word, it's become over time, the more we've started using it, it's become understood within our team. And we'll literally just, even like having a meeting, someone will just say, as we're talking about a product idea. And then like other people will perk up and like, that feels good. That, just that one word makes everybody focus and think about, why is that feeling good? Tell us more about that. Let's explore that. Does that align with what other people are thinking? Or if someone says, then others, sometimes like it's the whole team says in unison, and it's a way of agreeing that we're all on the same page. It's like, yes, we're heading in the right direction. So it's it's pretty amazing. Like the more you start using it, how good it helps in communicating that we're hopefully all on the same page. The R test is a dynamic operational North Star. I touched on this slightly earlier. Sometimes big organizational goals feel a bit detached and we don't know how we can contribute to it. So the R test connects with the North Star by thinking about the goals that we may have, and also thinking about the work we're doing, and we can start to express how that we can start saying when we see the connection between what we're working on and the business goals. And again, that just naturally makes sure that we're all on the same page, that we're not working on something that doesn't matter. Increasingly with business these days, we have to be more efficient. We have to be smarter with how we work, and understanding that what we're doing day to day connects with the business goals is important, and we need to build that into how we operate daily. The R test creates a sense of shared ownership. And I think this is super important as well. It's like everyone contributing. Um, we can all be empowered to say or spot the R test. And this is how everyone owns quality in real life. And when sometimes it feels like, you know, in the testing world and the quality world, it's like quality is everywhere. But it's easy to say that, but to actually live it and experience it, I believe like the R test enables that, because we're all spotting opportunities, we're all trying to find ways to work better. And this is very practical and hands-on way to enable anyone in the team to take part. And when we take part together, that is shared ownership. And when it's so simple that anyone can contribute by just saying in certain situations, that is a way of everyone showing up. I just think, you know, as part of that as well, it's like we have to find ways to make contributing easy sometimes. And if it's literally just saying or an emoji react to something, that's valid as well. And this is a few screenshots from our internal Slack. So the top one is me kind of commenting on some new features that we had built in the MoTaverse. So we recently got rid of like separate event registrations, and it's more integrated now. And when someone signs up to an event, you can see stuff on their profile. And when I saw that, it literally made me go, And this was after they built it, right? So I was like expressing it, like, yes, this is the kind of stuff we want. This passes the R test. This feels really good. Like I can see potential in this. We need to do more of this. We need to think more like this. So the R test is also an expression of let's do more of this. And if we do more of this, this will help our business. This will help us grow. This will help us build a better product. The other screenshot that says certificate earned. So this was a feature that this is very recently actually. So we've got certificates, and when people complete a certificate, they do a test and they pass a test. And for a year we've been like creating the certificates by hand afterwards. So it would be a manual job behind the scenes, and then we would upload it. But this message here was in reaction to the fact that we had automated that task, and we had agreed to do that, and we knew it would pass our test. But sometimes when it goes live and you see it happening, you can't help but say, this feels amazing. And then the knock-on effect is like you realize that you knew it would be a good thing, but then when you see it happening in real life, so to speak, and then you realize like, oh my God, like we don't have to do this manually anymore. This feels so good. It's like, and then we react now with an emoji where we're like, this feels good. And it's just, you know, a reiteration of we've always got the R test in the back of our mind. We're always looking for things that help us feel good about the work we're doing. And then the other Slack message here, it says, I've decided against it. It doesn't pass R tests. So, you know, it's like we make decisions, and like every decision I have is that I'm looking for reasons on whether to go ahead or not to go ahead. And sometimes it's really hard to make decisions. And we make decisions for all sorts of things. It's not just product stuff. It's, you know, it's collaborating with people or inviting people to events, or, you know, there's all sorts of decisions that we have to make. And at the back of our mind now, we always ask, does this pass our test? Why does it pass, or why does it not pass? And it, you know, sometimes we just accept it as it is, or sometimes it creates further discussion. So, like I mentioned in the previous slide, the R test helps us celebrate. We can look at our work and recognize our progress. And in the team dynamics, that's important to realize. It's like we're working on the right things. We're watching things be shipped. We're watching things be used. And for us, emoji reacting with an R test emoji react is a celebration. It really is. And the impact that that's had on us has been hugely positive. The R test taps into our emotions, experience, and recognition of insights. Stating that something doesn't feel right opens up the conversation to why. It can be enlightening and encourage others to speak up too. And I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier on, but perhaps we don't talk about how we feel, or we don't share our insights, and it's hard to find an opportunity to speak up. And the R test again is that signal of, we can say, we can emoji react with R test, or we can start to express ourselves, and it gives like an invitation to start talking about things. And once that conversation gets going, then it really does lead to interesting places, but ultimately it leads to making better decisions. The R test can be used to explore ideas. So like, we could say, wouldn't it be amazing if, or how would you feel if we ship this? So we can talk about ideas, and we can ask ourselves, does this pass the R test? How is it making us feel? Does it feel good? Does it align? And again, that's another way to help us make decisions. And of course, we can contrast this with the UGG test. I'm not sure if UGG is the best word for it, but essentially this is the opposite of the R test. This is when the R test doesn't pass. When something feels wrong, we can point it out and we say, this doesn't pass, this feels UGG. And then we can explain our reasons why. And again, it's just like, it's a starting point of a conversation of explaining why we don't think it's a good idea. And it's an invitation to listen to others, and then find ways to figure out what to do next. And yeah, this is a bit of a list of a summary of most of the points that we've kind of covered as part of the R test. But that is pretty much the presentation. Thank you, AMA. Visit the MoTaverse. I don't know if there's time for questions or anything like that, but yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Rosie. I think everything we heard was amazing. We will have to think about it, I believe. We ran out of time, so there won't be questions, but I am pretty sure that you can find Rosie in the media so easy. So please check her out at LinkedIn. She's very active there, and you can send the questions directly to her. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.